Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. You are listening to a rebroadcast of a previously recorded show.
All right, we're informed our next guest is on the line. So I'd like to welcome the program author Sharon Millar. Sharon, thanks for calling. How are you?
I'm really good. Thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, I'm sure you're thrilled. Is this the first time you've attended the Miami Book Fair?
I've been once before, but this is the first time I'm actually participating. That I'll be on a panel, so I'm quite excited about that.
All right, so Sharon, let's go right into your background. As you're going to be on a panel right now, I have my co-host that's streaming it right now, Eric Remmel from Life Improvement Radio, and I also have Peter Elvidge, so they have questions for you. So I just wanted to hear some of your background, and then they're going to get to some questions for you.
Okay. Well, I'll be talking. Our panel today is on the Caribbean short story. So I'll be appearing with Rhoda Barrett. She's another Trinidadian short story writer. And I'll also be appearing with Olive Senior. She's the author of several very well-known Jamaican books, both novels, short stories, and poetry. And we're just going to be having a conversation about the evolution of the Caribbean short story. I'm the author of The Whale House and Other Stories, which is a collection of short stories set in Trinidad, sort of loosely linked, but dealing with several topical, themes. I do write quite a bit about violence. I often write from the female perspective, and I would say my work is very, very strongly connected to the Trinidadian landscape. I think that pretty much sums up, the type of work that I do.
Gotcha. So to start off, for when you're doing your books, what kind of research do you do, and then how much time does it take before beginning a book?
It's a peculiar thing. Some stories take, I would say, 3 months to cook. I may become interested in a particular, something catches my attention, and you develop a sort of mini obsession. And often, I'll sit on the story for 3 months, 4 months, and then one day I'll just sit and it will come. It will arrive fully formed on the page. Other times you have a story you start, and I may have several incarnations of that story. It's really interesting. I was having this conversation with another writer last week about revision and the importance of revision. And I actually have perhaps 2 or 3 stories that are in the collection that have appeared in different places and were different titles. They were differently titled. They were stories in themselves, but obviously had not been developed to their full potential yet. So I would say my process, it depends on the material, but I'm usually not a very fast writer. I tend to be quite slow.
Gotcha.
I see that your focus has been mainly on short stories so far, and you've got quite an accomplishment. You've won several, short story awards. And is your main focus going to be in the future short stories, or do you have any, poetry or any novels or anything in the horizon, or are you going to continue along the path of short stories?
I have been so mandated to write a novel, and so I am working on a novel right now. The form is quite different, so it remains to be seen whether I am a short story writer or if I can make the transition over to being a novelist, because I do believe they are completely different animals. And I'm also a strong believer in I'm always looking for the story under the story. So a lot of my narratives may be telling one story on the surface, but there's actually another far more complicated story going on underneath. And the challenge that I'm having with the novel, of course, is having to sustain that for the length of a book. But I have a project that I'm working on, which I'm hoping will be completed by the middle of next year.
Awesome.
So there
That's
is
exciting.
something in the pipeline. Yeah, it is. So.
Yes, and have you seen in the process of writing short stories versus a novel, that's going to be a lot more complex, right, in so many ways of putting together?
Well, it's a different thing. I mean, I think I understand the short story form very well. I think just to a large extent it comes naturally to me. So I can push the limits of the short story, and that gives me a lot of pleasure. I mean, I've actually written 4 new short stories after this collection came out last year. I have 4 different short stories that have appeared in different places. So I'm still producing the short stories because it's a form I like. The novel, it's one thing I have noticed is you really do have the luxury to sort of sit back and write long, and that has been very enjoyable because sometimes you have to write yourself to a place, and often with the short form, you find yourself a little constricted in that way then, and that has really been, I think, one of the great joys that I've discovered with writing, or in the process of writing a novel. Just having the space to really write your way to the heart of something. So that's where I am now. I'm also a big believer in the slush pile. I never throw anything away. I have a huge file on my computer, and even random things I write and I put them into my slush pile, and inevitably, I pull them out, sort of like a sewing kit. I just scrap the material and I just sort of pull them out and patch them in, So I'd advise anyone writing, don't throw anything away. I talk a lot.
Great point.
I am, I talk a lot.
Gotcha. So something to think about for those who are either beginning writing or thinking about doing short stories. Would you recommend them to just kind of jump into short stories, or start out with longer stories to kind of get what they want to write about first, and then when they get to shorter stories, they're able to kind of refine it and make it a smaller format? That's an interesting point or question. I did an MFA. So I did my MFA. I did a low residency MFA because I do live in Trinidad, so I was not able to relocate to Boston. So I did a low residency MFA at Lesley University from 2010 to 2012. And often in the MFA programs, you do tend to start with the short stories because, of course, they're easier. It's an easier form, to teach as well, in terms of looking at craft, in terms of looking at, how point of view is managed, how landscape is managed, So I think a lot of people do start there when they come out of the MFAs. But, some people go naturally to the novel. There's some people that say, listen, I don't see the point of a short story. It's just too tight, too condensed, So I think for everyone, the process is very different. There's some people that are natural novel writers, and look at Alice Munro, she wrote almost exclusively short stories and has built a very successful career on that. Gotcha.
If that answers your question.
Yeah. Gotcha. Alrighty.
So your upcoming project, are you able to disclose any details? Is it going to be based on life in Trinidad? Is it going to be something out of the normal for you? Any information you can let us know?
It's so hard. It's one of these things. You feel if you talk about something too much, you'll kill it. It's like, but I think that I will be exploring 2 different time periods because I do think there's a lot of material in the Caribbean that still needs revisiting. And I think we have a very, very painful history in the Caribbean. There's still issues that we are struggling with as post-colonial societies, and it's going to take us a long time to work our way through, a lot of that painful material. And one of the ways in which we can do this as a society is through the art. So, I sort of feel that the work has to mean something. So I am looking at setting the novel in 2 different time periods and perhaps going back and forth, as a way of exploring some of that history.
I think that's great. So many people really aren't aware of the issues you have still, in your culture and society, and it's good to be able to express that.
Yeah, one of the problems that we suffer with in the Caribbean, and it's not a problem. I don't mean that it's a problem. Nothing's ever really a problem unless you make it one. But there is often the perception that the islands are, they represent a place of escape for so many people. People who are coming from larger countries, people who visit the islands for vacation. Often the islands are portrayed as utopias, and literally as backdrops to people that live in large countries and have what appears to be on the page more fulfilling lives. And I'm really interested in in debunking that concept, of saying that, no, we are actually very, very complicated societies, and I guess reversing the gaze to some extent, looking back out at the world and speaking to the world from our point of view.
Such very, very important for sure. Sharon, and definitely looking at, how we look at things as an island paradise versus really the reality of going to those places. But Sharon, the best place we can find information on you, purchase your book, and learn more about you, where can we go?
I'm published with a small publisher, but very well-known publisher in the UK called People Tree Press. You can contact them directly. They're on the web. I believe Books and Books stocks my book as well. And I'm available on Amazon. I'm available via Kindle. And in some of the bookstores, it's a small press, so it's not widely distributed, but you can definitely find me online at Amazon and in Trinidad, of course. But Books and Books, I do know has copies of the book as well.
All right,
and hopefully
fantastic.
This interview will encourage people to buy more books. So.
It was very interesting to look at the research, Sharon. Books are up, book sales are up. So you think after certain things, but yeah. So let's keep them going because it's such interesting stuff instead of watching television. So keep your good work. Good luck on your next project, and thanks for calling.
Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Life Improvement Radio. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by the producers, writers, or editors will always be presented as such. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without the expressed written consent of Life Improvement Radio is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening.